The Galactic Assembly Hall was the largest building ever made by any living creature. It floated in space between three dying stars, and inside it, 742 different alien species sat in their seats, waiting for the meeting to begin. Some of them were tall and thin like sticks. Some were made of light. Some looked like rocks with eyes. And some were so strange that human eyes could not understand what they were looking at. Ambassador Thomas Reed sat in the human section, which was very small and located in the back corner. Humanity had only been traveling through space for 50 years. In galactic terms, this was nothing. Most species here had been flying between stars for millions of years. To them, humans were like babies who had just learned to walk. Tomas was nervous. His hands were sweating inside his formal suit. This was humanity's first real trade meeting with the big powers of the galaxy. If it went well, Earth would get new technology, new medicines, and new friends. If it went badly, well, Thomas tried not to think about that. The High Arbiter Crix entered the hall, and everyone became silent. Crix was the leader of the Velthari Dominion, the most powerful empire in the known universe. The Velthari had ruled 3 spiral arms of the galaxy for 6 million years. They had never lost a war. They had destroyed 17 entire civilizations. When the Velthari spoke, everyone listened. Crix was beautiful and terrifying. His body was made of living crystal, and he stood 12 feet tall. Different colors moved through his transparent form like slow lightning. His eyes were 2 points of pure white light. "We will now hear from the human delegation," Crix announced. His voice sounded like glass singing. Tomas stood up. His legs felt weak. He walked to the speaking platform, holding his prepared speech. He had practiced it 100 times. He knew every word. "Honored members of the Interstellar Council," Tomas began, "we come bearing gifts of friendship. Earth wishes to establish trade relationships with all willing species. We offer our unique arts, our music, our creativity, and our..." He stopped. Something was wrong. The translation matrix, the machine that changed his words into 700 different languages, was making a strange noise. Sparks flew from its side, and all around the hall, aliens were gasping, shouting, and pointing at him. Crix's crystal body turned from clear blue to deep angry red. "What did you say?" the High Arbiter demanded. I said we come bearing gifts of friendship. LIES. Crix's voice shook the entire hall. "You spoke the ancient challenge. You declared that humans consider the Velthari unworthy of our own space. You have insulted my people in the oldest and most unforgivable way." Tomas's blood turned to ice. "High Arbiter, please. The translation machine malfunctioned. I never meant." Silence. Crix's form was now pure red, the color of Velthari rage. "Your species has existed for a cosmic heartbeat, and you dare to challenge the Dominion? Very well. We accept your declaration of war. You have 30 rotations to prepare your extinction." The hall exploded into chaos. Tomas stood frozen on the platform, unable to move, unable to breathe. He had just accidentally started a war with the most dangerous species in the universe. On Earth, it was a beautiful Tuesday morning. General Lisa Park was drinking her coffee and reading reports when her phone rang. She answered it casually, expecting routine business. 3 minutes later, the coffee cup lay shattered on the floor, and Lisa was running toward the emergency command center. Captain Kevin Song met her at the door, his face pale. "General, the transmission is confirmed. The Velthari have officially declared war on humanity. Because of a translation error?" "Yes, ma'am." Lisa sat down heavily in her chair. Around her, screens showed Earth's military assets, 12 warships. 12. The Velthari had millions. "What do the other species say?" she asked. Kevin handed her a tablet. Message after message filled the screen. They all said the same thing. Condolences. Every single alien civilization was sorry that humanity was about to die. Some offered to take human refugees. Some offered to remember human culture after the extinction. None offered to help. The Kreth ambassador sent flowers, Kevin said quietly. Their species only sends flowers for funerals. Lisa stared at the tablet for a long moment. Then she did something that surprised everyone in the room. She laughed. General? Kevin asked, worried. They've already decided we're dead, Lisa said. Every species in the galaxy has written us off. The Velthari have never lost, so they think this will be easy. She stood up and looked at her staff. They don't know us. They don't know what humans are capable of when we have no choice but to fight. Ma'am, with respect, we have 12 ships. They have millions. Our technology is centuries behind theirs. How can we possibly? I don't know yet, Lisa admitted. But we have 30 days to figure it out. Get me every scientist, every engineer, every creative mind on this planet. Wake up the universities. Call the retired generals. Find the crazy inventors and the mad geniuses. We need ideas, and we need them now. She walked to the window and looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, the largest military force in galactic history was preparing to destroy her world. We didn't survive ice ages, plagues, and world wars just to die because of a broken translator, she said. We didn't crawl out of caves, invent fire, split the atom, and reach the stars just to give up now. Kevin stood beside her. What do we tell the public? Lisa thought about it. She thought about the billions of people on Earth who were about to learn that aliens wanted to kill them all. She thought about the fear and panic that would follow. Tell them the truth, she said finally. Tell them we're in trouble. Tell them we need everyone. Tell them that humanity faces its greatest test. She turned to face her staff. And then tell them what we're going to do about it. What are we going to do about it, General? Lisa smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a human who had been pushed into a corner and was getting ready to push back. We're going to get creative, she said. We're going to fight dirty. We're going to cheat, lie, trick, and do whatever we have to do. And when the Velthari come to destroy us, they're going to learn something that no other species in this galaxy has ever taught them. What's that? Lisa looked back at the stars. That humans don't know how to quit. The first Velthari scouting fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system on day 15. There were 50 ships, each one the size of a small city. They moved through space like floating mountains of crystal. Beautiful and deadly Commander Thrix stood on the bridge of his flagship, scanning the darkness ahead. He expected to find human ships running away in fear. He expected to see surrender messages flooding his communication channels. The Velthari had done this many times before. Weak species always begged for mercy when they saw what was coming. But there was nothing. The space around Earth's outer planets was empty. No ships, no signals, no movement at all. They have fled, Thrix reported to High Arbiter Crix through the long-range communicator. The humans are cowards, as expected. They probably ran to hide on some distant moon. Find them, Crix ordered. Find them and destroy them. Leave nothing. It will be done, High Arbiter. Thrix ended the communication and smiled. This would be easy. This would be quick. The humans were clearly too scared to fight. He was wrong. On Earth, Dr. Amy Cho had not slept in 18 days. Her eyes were red and tired. Her hair was a mess, and she had been living on coffee and protein bars. But none of that mattered, because she had found something incredible. Amy was a xenobiologist, a scientist who studied alien life. When the war began, General Park had asked her one simple question. What is the Velthari weakness? Every species has one, Park had said. Find it. So Amy had read every report, every study, every piece of information about the Velthari that humanity had collected. Most of it was useless. The Velthari were strong. The Velthari were fast. The Velthari could regenerate from almost any wound. Their ships were nearly unbreakable. But then Amy found something in an old first contact report from 30 years ago. A small note that everyone had ignored. They're silicon-based, she told General Park in the emergency meeting. Their bodies, their ships, their technology, everything is made of crystalline structures. We know this, Park said, frowning. That's why they're so hard to kill. Crystals are tough. Amy smiled for the first time in weeks. Crystals are tough, she agreed. But crystals have a weakness. Every crystal has a resonant frequency. If you hit a crystal with the right sound wave, the right vibration, it will shake itself apart. This is basic physics. Wine glasses break when opera singers hit high notes. Buildings fall in earthquakes because of resonance. The room went very quiet. Are you saying, Park spoke slowly, that we can shatter the Velthari with sound? Not just sound. Specific frequencies. Each crystal structure has its own breaking point. If we can find the right frequencies and deliver them with enough power. Amy spread her hands. We can break anything they have. Park turned to her chief engineer, Dr. Marcus Lee. Can we do this? Marcus was already typing on his tablet. It will take time. We need to analyze Velthari material samples, calculate the frequencies, build weapons that can deliver them. But yes, I think we can do this. How much time? A week, maybe less if we work around the clock. Park nodded. You have 5 days. Get started. While the scientists worked, Captain David Kim waited in the asteroid belt with humanity's disappeared fleet. The 12 warships were hidden among the rocks, running silent, invisible to enemy scanners. His first officer, Lieutenant Grace Yang, floated beside him on the bridge, watching the scanner screens. The Velthari scouts are moving toward Earth, she reported. They'll be in firing range in about 6 days. Good, David said. That gives us time. Time for what, Captain? We can't fight 50 ships with 12. David turned to look at her. Who said anything about fighting fair? Over the next 5 days, the human fleet worked without rest. They retrofitted every weapon they had, adding new frequency generators designed by Dr. Cho's team. They built thousands of small drone bombs and filled them with resonance devices. They practiced flying in patterns that no tactical computer could predict. And they waited. The Velthari fleet moved through the asteroid belt on day 20, confident and careless. They had scanned the area and found nothing but rocks. There was no danger here. Commander Thrix was looking forward to reaching Earth. He had already planned where he would start the burning. He would begin with the largest cities, then move to the smaller ones. The extinction would be complete within 2 weeks. He never saw the attack coming. The first resonance bomb detonated against his flagship's hull. It was a small device, no bigger than a football. But the sound it made was perfect, a frequency tuned, exactly to the crystalline structure of Velthari ship armor. The hull began to vibrate. Small cracks appeared, then larger ones. Then, with a sound like a million windows breaking at once, the entire front section of the ship shattered into 1 billion pieces. Thrix had just enough time to scream before the vacuum of space pulled him into the darkness. All around the Velthari fleet, drone bombs activated. Each one sang a different note, a different frequency. Some broke engines. Some broke weapons. Some broke the bodies of the Velthari soldiers themselves, shattering them from the inside out. In less than an hour, the entire scouting fleet was destroyed. Captain David Kim watched the last enemy ship fall apart. His hands were shaking. He had not believed it would actually work. Send the message to Earth, he told Grace. Tell them the first battle is won. Grace was crying and laughing at the same time. Captain, we did it. We actually did it. We did, David agreed. But this is just the beginning. The Velthari have 1 million more ships. They'll learn from this. They'll adapt. Then what do we do? David looked out at the debris field that had once been an enemy fleet. Somewhere in that mess were the remains of Commander Thrix, who had been so sure that humans were cowards. We adapt faster, David said. That's what humans do. Across the galaxy, the news spread quickly. The Velthari had lost a fleet. Not a ship. A fleet. 50 vessels, gone in an hour. Destroyed by a species that had only been in space for 50 years, on 100 different worlds. Aliens who had sent humanity funeral flowers began to wonder if they had made a mistake. And in the halls of the Galactic Assembly, species who had been afraid for millions of years began to feel something new. Hope. The Galactic Assembly Hall had never been louder. 742 species talked, shouted, and argued with each other. The news of the Velthari defeat had spread across every corner of known space, and nobody could believe it. Ambassador Thomas Reed sat in a small room on the station, technically a prisoner of war. He had been waiting for execution since the day of the accidental insult. But now, suddenly, everyone wanted to talk to him. The door opened, and 3 different alien ambassadors pushed their way inside. One was a serpentine creature from the Kreth Empire. One was a floating ball of blue light from the Nexus Collective. And one was a small furry being that looked almost like a cat with too many legs. How? The Kreth ambassador demanded, his long body coiling with excitement. How did your people defeat a Velthari fleet? We have been warriors for 2 million years, and we have never beaten them in direct combat. Thomas shrugged. I honestly don't know the details. I've been stuck in this room. But you are human, the light being said. You must know something about your own species. Thomas thought about it. What did he know about humanity? He knew that humans were stubborn. He knew that humans were creative. He knew that when humans were told something was impossible, they often did it anyway just to prove everyone wrong. We don't really believe in invincible, Thomas said finally. Everyone has a weakness. Everything can be beaten. We just have to find out how. The 3 ambassadors looked at each other. This was a strange way of thinking. Most species accepted their place in the galaxy. The weak served the strong. The strong ruled the weak. That was how things worked. But humans apparently did not agree. Interesting, the Kreth ambassador said. Very interesting. Back on Earth, the celebration lasted exactly 4 hours. Then General Lisa Park called her commanders together and reminded them of something important. The Velthari will adapt, she said, pointing at the tactical display. The resonance weapons worked because they weren't expecting them. Next time, they'll have shields, countermeasures, something. We need new ideas. We're working on it, Dr. Amy Cho replied. Her team had not stopped working since the first victory. But we're running out of options. The Velthari are incredibly advanced. Most of our tricks only work once. Captain Kevin Song raised his hand. General, what if we found allies? Other species who might help us? The Galactic Assembly has already made their position clear. No one wants to fight the Velthari. No one except the species that the Velthari hurt, Kevin said quietly. There must be survivors out there. Refugees from the civilizations the Dominion destroyed. What if we found them? Park stared at him. It was crazy. It was dangerous. It was exactly the kind of desperate plan that might work. Do we have any leads? Kevin nodded. Old reports mentioned something called the Shade Collective. They were nearly wiped out by the Velthari 2 million years ago. The survivors supposedly fled into dark space, the empty regions between galaxies. Nobody has heard from them since. Because they're probably dead, Amy pointed out. Probably, Kevin agreed. But what if they're not? Lieutenant Grace Yang was chosen for the diplomatic mission. She was brave, she was smart, and she had a gift for making friends in difficult situations. Her ship, a small fast cruiser called the Starlight, left Earth on day 25, heading for the darkness between galaxies. The journey took 3 days. Grace spent most of it in meditation, preparing herself for whatever she might find. The Shade Collective, if they still existed, had spent 2 million years hiding from the Valkyrie. They would not trust easily. The dark space was exactly as its name suggested. Dark. No stars, no planets, no light at all except for the faint glow of distant galaxies. Grace had never felt so alone. Shade Collective. She broadcast on all frequencies. This is Lieutenant Grace Yang of Earth. We are at war with the Valkyrie Dominion. We are seeking allies. Please respond. Nothing. Just silence and darkness. Grace broadcast the message again. And again. And again. For 6 hours, she called out into the emptiness, hoping that someone was listening. Finally, just as she was about to give up, her screen flickered. A shape appeared barely visible, like a shadow given form. It was a shade. "You are human," the creature said. Its voice was like whispers overlapping each other. "We have watched your species. You are young, foolish. You challenged the Dominion and expected to survive." "We didn't challenge them," Grace explained. "It was an accident. A translation error. It does not matter. The result is the same. You will be destroyed." "Maybe," Grace admitted. "But we already destroyed one of their fleets. And we're not done fighting." The shadow went still. "You defeated a Valkyrie fleet? 50 ships. Gone in an hour." For a long moment, the shade said nothing. Grace could feel it studying her, analyzing her, trying to decide if she was lying. "Show me," the shade finally said. Grace transmitted the battle recordings. She showed the drone bombs detonating. She showed the Valkyrie ship shattering like glass. She showed Commander Thrix's flagship breaking apart. When the recording ended, the shadow had changed. It was no longer cold and distant. Something else was there now, something that looked almost like excitement. "You actually hurt them," the shade breathed. "In 2 million years, we have never seen anyone hurt them." "We're trying," Grace said. "But we need help. We can't beat them alone." "No, you cannot." The shadow grew larger, and Grace realized that there were other shapes behind it. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. An entire hidden civilization that had been waiting in the darkness for 2 million years. "We are the Shade Collective," the creature announced. "We are the survivors. We are the ones who remember what the Valkyrie took from us. And we have been waiting for someone foolish enough to stand against them. We prefer brave," Grace said. "Is there a difference?" Grace smiled. "Ask us again when we win." The shade made a sound that might have been laughter. "You are strange creatures, humans. You have no idea what you are facing. You have no idea how powerful the Dominion truly is. And yet you smile. You make jokes. You act as if victory is possible." "It is possible," Grace said firmly. "Everything is possible." The shadow spread its arms, if they were arms in a gesture of acceptance. "Then we will help you. We will teach you what we know about the Valkyrie. We will share our technology, our intelligence, our weapons. And when the time comes, we will fight beside you." "Thank you," Grace said, and she meant it with her whole heart. "Do not thank us yet, human. The war has barely begun. The Valkyrie will send larger fleets, stronger weapons, smarter commanders. They will not underestimate you again." "We're counting on it," Grace replied. "Why?" Grace looked out at the darkness around her, the vast empty space where the Shade Collective had hidden for 2 million years. They had survived by running, by hiding, by staying invisible. But humans were different. Because every time someone underestimates us, Grace explained, we prove them wrong. And every time we prove them wrong, more species start to believe that the Valkyrie can be beaten. That's how we win this war. Not just with weapons. With hope. The Shadow considered this for a long moment. Hope, it repeated. We had forgotten what that feels like. Then let us remind you, Grace said. Let us show the entire galaxy what hope looks like. And far away, watching from his throne of crystal, High Arbiter Crix received the report that the Shade Collective had emerged from dark space. That they were joining the humans. That the war he had expected to win in weeks was becoming something else entirely. For the first time in his ancient life, Crix felt something cold in his chest. Fear. High Arbiter Crix sat in his war chamber, surrounded by floating screens that showed him everything. He saw his fleets moving through space. He saw the reports from his generals. He saw the numbers, how many ships remained, how many soldiers were ready, how much power the Dominion still held. The numbers were good. The Dominion was still the strongest force in the galaxy. The humans had won a few small battles, but they could not win the war. It was mathematically impossible, and yet, Crix stared at the screen showing Earth. Such a small planet. Such a young species. They should have been easy to destroy. Instead, they had become the most frustrating enemy the Dominion had ever faced. The Second Fleet had been destroyed by computer viruses. The humans had somehow sent invisible programs into Valkyrie systems, programs that spread from ship to ship, turning weapons against their own crews. 300 vessels had been lost before the virus was contained. The Third Fleet had been lured into a gas giant's atmosphere. The human ships had flown straight into the crushing pressure, and the Valkyrie had followed. But human ships were built differently. They were ugly and primitive, but they were also small and flexible. They survived conditions that crushed the larger Valkyrie cruisers like empty cans. The Fourth Fleet had simply disappeared. No wreckage. No signals. No explanation. 1,000 ships had entered an asteroid field, and none had come out. Scouts sent to investigate found nothing but empty space and silence. What are they? Crix asked his chief advisor, an ancient Valkyrie named Counselor Vex. These humans. What are they? Vex had spent weeks studying everything known about humanity. He had read their history, analyzed their biology, examined their culture. What he had found disturbed him. They are survivors, Vex answered slowly. Their homeworld is not kind. It has extreme temperatures, burning heat and freezing cold. It has constant natural disasters, earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanic eruptions. It has millions of species competing for resources. Many of them dangerous predators. Many worlds have such conditions. Yes, but Earth also has diseases, tiny organisms that invade human bodies and try to kill them from the inside. Humans spend their entire lives fighting invisible enemies they cannot see, and their own biology works against them. Their cells rebel and become what they call cancer. Their organs fail. Their bodies break down. Crix considered this. The Valkyrie were crystal beings. They did not get sick. They did not age. They simply existed, perfect and eternal, until something destroyed them. How do humans survive at all? They adapt, Vex said. They change. They overcome. Every challenge makes them stronger. Every disaster teaches them new skills. They have been on the edge of extinction many times. Ice ages, plagues, wars that covered their entire world. Each time they survived. Each time they came back stronger than before. They sound like pests. They are worse than pests, High Arbiter. Pests can be exterminated. Humans. Humans find ways. They always find ways. Crix turned back to his screens. Somewhere in that vast darkness, Captain David Kim was leading another impossible attack. The Battle of Nexus Station was supposed to be a quick raid. Nexus was a Velthury supply depot, protected by a garrison of 2,000 ships. David's fleet had only 32 vessels. Any sane commander would have stayed away. David was not a sane commander. You know this is crazy, right? Lieutenant Grace Yang asked as they approached the station. She had returned from dark space with the Shade Collective's promise of support, but that support would take time to arrive. For now, they were on their own. Completely crazy, David agreed. But look at what we're attacking. Nexus Station supplies fuel and weapons to the entire Velthury Third Army. If we destroy it, we cripple their operations in this sector for months. And if we fail, we lose a third of our entire fleet. Then we better not fail. The attack began at exactly midnight, Earth time. David had chosen the hour deliberately. Humans were the only species in the known galaxy that divided time into light and darkness, day and night. Other species found this confusing. David used that confusion as a weapon. His ships did not attack in formation. They did not follow any recognizable pattern. Each captain had been given one simple order: cause chaos. Lieutenant Brian Na, the communications officer on David's flagship, played old Earth War songs on every open frequency. The music confused the Velthury, who had never encountered such strange sounds. They wasted precious seconds trying to understand what they were hearing. In those seconds, human pilots ejected from damaged ships and manually attached explosive charges to enemy vessels. It was insane. It was suicidal. It was something no tactical computer could predict, because no sane species would ever try it. The humans were not sane. They were desperate. And desperate humans were the most dangerous creatures in the universe. Engineer Officer Jake Turner rerouted power on his destroyer in ways that should have killed everyone on board. Instead, the ship's weapons fired 3 times faster than designed, punching holes through Velthury cruisers before they could react. Pilot Alice Wright flew her fighter straight into a Velthury battleship's hangar bay, crashed, climbed out of the wreckage, and started shooting with a hand weapon. By the time Velthury soldiers reached her, she had destroyed the battleship's main power generator from the inside. She died with a smile on her face. When the battle ended, the human fleet had lost 15 ships and 843 lives. But Nexus Station was a field of debris, and the Velthury Third Army was crippled. General Lisa Park received the casualty report in her office on Earth. She read every name. She memorized every face. These were her people, and they had given everything. What did it cost? She asked Captain Kevin Song. Too much, Kevin replied quietly. And not enough? What do you mean? Kevin pulled up a tactical display. The Velthury are sending their main battle fleet. 500,000 ships, led by High Arbiter Crix himself. They're done playing games. They're coming to end this. Lisa stared at the display. 500,000 ships. Against humanity's remaining 47. How long do we have? 3 months. 3 months. To find a way to defeat an enemy that outnumbered them 10,000 to 1. It was impossible. It was hopeless. Lisa closed her eyes and thought about her parents, who had survived the Pacific War. She thought about her grandparents, who had survived the Korean War. She thought about all the humans throughout history who had faced impossible odds and refused to give up. Call a meeting, she said finally. Not just the military, everyone. Scientists, artists, teachers, farmers. If someone has any idea, I want to hear it. General, we can't possibly. We won one battle because a xenobiologist remembered high school physics. We won another because a communications officer played rock music at the enemy. The best ideas come from unexpected places. She opened her eyes. We have 3 months to save humanity. Let's use every brain we have. The call went out to every corner of Earth, and from every corner, ideas came flooding back. Some were brilliant. Some were insane. Some were both. A retired music. Teacher suggested weaponizing frequencies through the Valtry's own communication systems, turning their radios into weapons that shattered them from within. A teenage gamer suggested tactical formations based on video game strategies patterns so illogical that enemy computers could not predict them. Grandmother in Ohio suggested making friends with everyone the Valtteri had ever hurt. That last idea had already begun, but it was about to grow much larger, because in the darkness between galaxies, the Shade Collective was finally ready to move. And they were not alone. Other survivors were waking up. Other victims were remembering their anger. Other species were starting to hope that the war was about to change. 1 year had passed since the accidental declaration of war. 1 year of battles, of losses, of impossible victories. 1 year of humanity fighting for its survival against the most powerful empire the galaxy had ever known. High Arbiter Crix stood once again in the Galactic Assembly Hall. His crystalline form had dimmed. The war had cost the Dominion more than they had lost in the previous 1,000,000 years combined. 3 of his best generals were dead. Half of his grand fleet was scattered debris floating in space. And the humans, those impossible, infuriating humans, were still alive. Worse, they were not alone anymore. Behind Ambassador Tomas Reed stood representatives from 14 different species. The Shade Collective had emerged from dark space with ships that had been hidden for 2,000,000 years. The Kreth Empire had broken their ancient neutrality. The free worlds of the Outer Rim had formed an alliance. Species that had been conquered by the Valtteri generations ago had risen up. Inspired by humanity's example that the universe was changing, and Crix could feel his empire crumbling. We propose a cessation of hostilities, the High Arbiter announced. The words tasted bitter. The Valtteri had never asked for peace. They gave orders and others obeyed. But now, for the first time, they were the ones bending. Ambassador Tomas Reed stood up. He looked different from the nervous young diplomat who had accidentally started this war. His eyes were harder. His shoulders were straighter. He had watched friends die and cities burn, and he had not broken doubt behind him. A holographic display showed Earth, not the burned wasteland the Valtteri had promised, but a blue and green world, battered but unbroken. Cities were being rebuilt. Ships were being constructed. Children were playing in parks and dreaming of stars. We accept, Tomas said simply, but we have terms. A murmur went through the assembly. No one made demands of the Valtteri. No one. First, Tomas continued, the Dominion will release all subjugated species. Every civilization you have conquered will be given their freedom. Their worlds will be returned to them. Crix's form flickered with anger, but he said nothing. Second, the Dominion will pay reparations to the species you have nearly destroyed. The Shade Collective, the Kreth, the others. You took their homes. You slaughtered their people. You owe them a debt that can never truly be repaid, but you will begin paying it. The Shade representative made a sound of fierce approval. Third, the Dominion will submit to oversight from a new galactic coalition. You will not make war without approval. You will not conquer without consent. The era of Valtteri supremacy is over. Crix could stand it no longer. You cannot demand this. He roared, his voice shaking the hall. You are infants. You have existed for merely. We have existed long enough. Tomas did not shout. He did not need to. His voice carried through the sudden silence like a blade. We have existed long enough to survive ice ages that froze our world. Long enough to survive plagues that killed half our population. Long enough to survive wars that burned our cities to ash. We have existed long enough to split the atom and heal the dying. Long enough to reach the stars. Long enough to look at your empire and say no. He stepped forward and Crix stepped back. The most powerful being in the galaxy, retreating from a human who did not even reach his shoulder. You asked what we are, Thomas said. Let me tell you. We are the species that refuses to quit. We are the ones who look at impossible odds and see a challenge. We are the creature that crawled out of the mud, stood upright, looked at the stars, and said, "Those are ours." The holographic display behind him changed. It showed images of human history. Cave paintings, pyramids, ships sailing unknown seas, rockets launching into space, people marching for freedom, children learning to read, doctors fighting disease, scientists unlocking the secrets of the universe. We have been fighting since the day we were born, Thomas continued. Fighting our world. Fighting each other. Fighting ourselves. Every generation faces challenges that should destroy us, and every generation survives. Not because we are strongest, not because we are smartest, but because we never, ever give up. He turned to face the full assembly, 742 species, many of whom had lived in fear of the Veltari for millions of years. You called us the deadliest species in the universe. You meant it as a warning. We are taking it as a compliment. Because we are deadly. Deadly to tyranny. Deadly to oppression. Deadly to anyone who thinks they can threaten our existence without consequence. One by one, the species of the assembly rose. The Shade Collective, shadows rippling with ancient pride. The Kreth, serpentine warriors who had finally found allies worthy of respect. The Free Worlds, the survivors, the dreamers who had watched humans do the impossible and decided to believe. Even species who had not joined the coalition were standing. They were acknowledging something that had not happened in millions of years. The end of an era. Crix looked at the rising crowd, at the faces full of hope and defiance, at the humans who had somehow turned his guaranteed victory into this. His form dimmed further, the bright red of anger fading to something closer to gray. You are insane, he said quietly. All of you. Probably, Thomas agreed. But we are also still here. And we will still be here tomorrow. And the day after. And every day until the last star burns out. The High Arbiter of the Veltari Dominion, ruler of 3 spiral arms, destroyer of 17 civilizations, the most feared being in galactic history, looked at the human in front of him and saw something he had never seen before, his own future. The Dominion accepts your terms, Crix said. The words seemed to drain something out of him. He turned and walked out of the assembly hall without looking back. When the doors closed behind him, the hall exploded in celebration. Species that had been enemies for generations embraced. Old grudges were forgotten. New alliances were formed. And at the center of it all, humanity stood, battered and wounded, but unbroken. General Lisa Park watched the celebration from Earth, surrounded by the people who had made it possible. Dr. Amy Cho, who had found the weakness that gave them their first victory. Captain David Kim, who had led the impossible battles. Lieutenant Grace Yang, who had brought them allies from the darkness. Captain Kevin Song, who had kept them organized through the chaos. What now? David asked. Lisa looked up at the stars. For a year, those stars had been the source of death and fear. Now they were something else. Possibility, future, hope. Now we do what we have always done, she said. We survive. We adapt. We grow. And the Veltari? They will hate us for generations. They will plot and scheme and look for ways to restore their power. That is who they are, So the war is not really over. Lisa smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. War is never really over. There is always another challenge, another threat, another impossible obstacle. That is the nature of existence. That sounds exhausting. It is. It is. But it is also beautiful. Because every challenge we overcome makes us stronger. Every victory, even the small ones, shows the universe what we are capable of. She turned to face her people. Today, we won. Tomorrow, there will be new problems. But we will face them together. Humans and Shades and Kreth and all the others who chose to stand with us. Grace stepped forward. The Shade representative wants to know something. She asked me to ask you, what is it? She wants to know how humans do it. How we keep fighting when the odds are impossible. How we maintain hope when everything seems lost. Lisa thought about it. She thought about her parents, her grandparents, all the generations that had come before. She thought about the children who would come after, who would inherit the universe that humanity had helped to change. Tell her this, Lisa said finally. We keep fighting because we do not know how to stop. We maintain hope because giving up feels worse than dying. And we do the impossible because no one told us it was impossible until we had already done it. Grace nodded and transmitted the message. Far away. In the darkness between galaxies, the Shade representative received the answer. She thought about it for a long time. 2 million years of hiding. 2 million years of fear. And now, because of a small, stubborn species that refused to accept defeat, everything had changed. She looked at the stars, the same stars she had been hiding from for so long, and felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. In the Galactic Assembly Hall. The celebration continued. Species that had never spoken were now talking. Enemies were becoming friends. The universe was rewriting itself, one conversation at a time. And in the human section, Ambassador Thomas Reed sat down heavily in his chair. His hands were shaking. His heart was racing. He had just faced down the most powerful being in existence, and he had won. A message appeared on his screen. It was from Earth, from General Park. Good job. Now come home. We have work to do. Thomas laughed. Of course, there was more work. There was always more work. That was what it meant to be human. He stood up, straightened his uniform, and walked out of the hall. Behind him, the universe celebrated the end of one era and the beginning of another. Ahead of him, the stars waited. And humanity walked forward to meet them. Just as it always had, just as it always would, step by step. Challenge by challenge until the end of time itself. Because that was what humans did. They survived. They adapted. They grew. And they never, ever gave up.